the one for me that's allowed me to not see all of my quote unquote negative emotions as a problem that I'm supposed to get rid of, that they're not supposed to be there. They're part of the whole experience. The two, they all balance each other out. When I'm in that quote unquote negative space, that place where it doesn't always feel good to be there. But here's the other thing. Let's just talk about sadness, right? It doesn't feel good to be sad, but the only way that I've ever really, really released my sadness was to experience it, right? If I cry it, I can cry it, I can hold it, I could refuse to cry, I could attach to it. But if I literally, and it's a physical experience for me where I cry and I go, okay, I really let that go. I mean, 5 minutes later, I might be laughing. An hour later, I might be. I might not. It might. Sometimes it's taken me years. Like I've had years of sadness. And that's okay. If I keep coming back home, if I continuously do it without expecting an outcome, detached from that, eventually I'm going to find joy and I'm going to be like, oh, I'm back. I'm here. Yay. I don't know.
Yeah, you just say the most profound stuff ever. And you're like, yeah, but I don't know.
Because I don't. I really don't. This is just like what I'm trying to figure out.
Help Me See is a podcast that redefines the word vision through vulnerable and real conversations, my own private introspective ramblings about the things that I think about in the wee hours of the morning, and my deep core belief that your nothingness is your everything, and all you have to do is see. I'm Bianca Mora. I'm your host. I am an educator, a photographic artist, and I believe that your daily photo habit can be the key to unlocking the ability to be more present in your everyday life and live deeper into your intention and purpose. We're not about the small talk here. Grab your coffee, get cozy, and let's talk. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Help Me See. Today on the show, the conversation I had with our special guest made me so happy. I sat down with my yoga instructor, Melanie Hale, and I hadn't had an at-length conversation with her like this before, and I was so happy to be in that space with her. She is the reason why I actually give a shit about yoga now. Like she really connected the dots for me in a profound way. Let me read a little bit about her from her own about page on her website, and then I'll give you a little more background info. So it says, I am a certified yoga instructor with a BA in psychology and Master of Arts in Public Administration. I am an explorer of movement, explorer of mind and of heart. I help people feel at home in their own skin, in their hearts, in their minds, and in their own way. I believe that we are all in the process of transformation. I'm committed to channeling transformation for myself and for others. I've dedicated my career to providing social services to others because I believe that we must work together to care for each other and love each other. Over the years, I've also learned that movement is a crucial part of self-discovery, and I want to share that experience with you. So Melanie's class is where I came up with the title Photo Yoga for our weekly free co-working connection space. And really, it was this experience that I would have over and over in her class where as she was teaching the movement, she would always be certain to say, maybe you do this, and I wonder if that, and maybe that doesn't feel good for you, and how about this? So everything that she teaches is always a suggestion and an invitation inward, back into your presence, into your body, into what feels good for you. And throughout class, she's always linking what we're physically doing with real life experiences and vulnerably sharing. And she's such an inspiration to me. And truly, I go with my partner's mother on Sundays, and I always feel, we say that we have our we go to church on Sundays when we go to Melanie's class. It just feels like a spiritual experience. And I feel so lucky to be so close to where a studio where she teaches. She teaches at Harmony Yoga in Ohio. So without further ado, I will give you our conversation. We just touched on all the things, all the good stuff. I invite you to take a look at the links that I provided in the show notes for Melanie. If you want to lean more into her world, she actually has a retreat coming up that she's hosting. So if you're looking for some physical space and a treat for yourself, maybe check out her retreat that she's hosting soon. And before I head out, I am doing a last call for free Sacred Vision discovery sessions. I am just finishing up my NLP certification, and I was celebrating with this free gift for anyone that wanted to partake. And I'm going to be closing it out soon because I am launching my brand new program for photographic artists. And I want to make sure that I have plenty of time to dedicate and focus to those students. So if you're interested in a Sacred Vision discovery session, go ahead and click on the link in the show notes and schedule that. How it works is it's a 2-part Zoom call. And the first part is a lot of me deeply listening to you. It's whatever topic that you're craving support with that's really present for you in the season of your life. And then I strategize a breakthrough session complete with various processes and techniques that I've learned throughout the certification. I've had the privilege to do a good few of these now, and it is such a intimate space of connection. And oftentimes the feedback I'll get was that even before the breakthrough session, even before doing any deep work around it, just having the space and the time to articulate these things that are so deeply ingrained in our hearts and our minds externally is a huge shift and a huge breakthrough in your own vision of what's going on for you. So that's my favorite part about this work. It's super empowering and always infers your own authority to what's going on in your life. Again, if that intrigues you, go ahead to the link in the show notes and book your session before I take the link away. Okie dokie. Oh, and if you are a photographic artist and you want to be in the know about my course that's coming out in the next few weeks, then I would sign up for the wait list for that as well. So you can be sure to get that email. All right, that's it. Without further ado, the magnificent Melanie Hale. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I love it.
I love my bat cave. I hang out in my basement a lot.
Nice. You have your own bat cave?
My own bat cave.
I love that.
It's the only way I have even a sliver of a chance at focusing on anything.
Yeah. Children and life and
Just anything. Daylight. I've been so looking forward to this. It feels so funny because I'm like, this are going to be our first real conversation. I'm like, I feel like your voice is so intimate in my mind that it doesn't feel like the first
conversation. That's such a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah. We record from the start. So we're recording. I usually do a little intro.
Yeah.
By myself, of your bio, whatever you want to send over before. So we don't need to, get into all that. We can just jump into the deep, dark chocolate.
Okay. I like dark chocolate.
So I wanted to start this with just one, I had to paint the picture because really, truly, you are the reason why yoga finally clicked for me. I think before this, it was another thing I was trying to do for wellness. It was very clinical. And I was like, oh, this is what it is. Literally to the point where sometimes if I'm I have the hankering to go and I look and it's not you, I'm like, sometimes I just don't go.
Yeah, but what is resonating for me about that is this idea that our wellness is somewhere outside of us.
Yes.
Like we have to go somewhere outside of us to find it,
Yes.
which is, I've been there and so I can completely relate to what you're saying. It's like in search of the holy grail, right? Which is it
Yeah.
yoga? Is it, some other, where is it? And I think for me, what I have to keep coming back to is that it's in my choices. That's where the wellness is. And not being ashamed or afraid or I don't know, upset with myself because I make a choice that may not be in this direction, that it can be all of the things, I guess,
Yeah. I mean, it felt like to me for so long a means to an end,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Where
And
am
I
I
think,
going? Where's the destination here? Where am I
and,
getting to?
mhm. And then
I'm
also
not
like,
there. I'm not there. It can't be now. It can't be right here, right now. It has to be somewhere in the future because I'm not content. I'm not happy. I'm not well. I'm not. It's like it comes from this, and I think it's a societal way of telling us we're broken. And I don't know if it's purposeful, but we keep hearing like, to be whole, you need to be that. To be whole, you need to be this. And if if we don't recognize, well, maybe I need a little bit of that. It's like a recipe. I love to cook. I'm going to put this much cinnamon and this much, but you might not like cinnamon. So does that mean you're not well, or you're not creating your own wellness because you don't like as much cinnamon as me? I don't know. That's just what's coming up for me. But
I think that before it kind of clicked in this way, like after yoga, I feel like a lot of the time I was looking, like as you were saying, like in search of the holy grail, like I was looking for uh the thing and guess it like but the journey of finding the thing, it was like, oh, surely this is either I'm either getting it right or wrong. It wasn't like it was just like, oh, this is, yeah, like I was
doing
fully
it
aware.
wrong.
yeah, it felt like whatever I chose, I was either internally choosing right or wrong. Like it wasn't like, it was weird. It wasn't like glorifying the medium or the whatever, but I was feeling like whatever I was trying, it was either the thing or it wasn't.
Mm. Yeah, and it feels so good when it's the thing.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
you find the thing.
Yeah. But then you can never stay in that thing, right? That's reality. Reality is always changing. At least our reality is always changing. And so if I find the thing and I attach to that thing, but that thing's going to change because that's the nature of things. Now I'm attached to something that is not permanent. And now I'm suffering because I attached to that thing, when it's the awesome thing.
I think that it's funny because I would even say that as much as I love it now, I still don't feel like yoga is my thing. Like I don't feel like it's this euphoric experience every time, but like what I'm addicted to is now the inevitable parallels and threads that I'm able to find throughout the practice because you are so great at like integrating and making it real and bringing the practice as we're doing it to like real life as you're doing it. Like, is that something that you always did? Is that something that just came to you, like your style that you developed? Like, how did you get to the space now where you're able to lead a class and simultaneously like weave in how it relates to like real life?
Well, I was taught it, absolutely 100% taught how to do that from my original teachers and my teacher training, which was eons ago and, took me a year to complete. That's how intense it was, So I took it seriously from the beginning, but I also think it took practice, more importantly, and courage because, telling someone to go into a side plank, that's great, and giving them cues about their body is really fun, and when they get embodied, that's amazing. I love all of those things. But, my background is a little bit mental health-ish. And so for me, yoga was always about like the full body, mind, spirit connection. And so if a class gets me really into my physical body, I love it. But when it gets me into a space where the mental chatter slows down, and then I can feel my heart, and then I can go, oh, this is why I'm doing this, because energetically it literally releases something that I was holding on to, or it brings something new in that I needed. And then I can take that into my hard conversation with my spouse, or my hard conversation with my parents, or a tough day at work. If I can bring the breathing, the connection, all of that into the rest of my life, then to me, that's what yoga is. Right. Because we only practice we practice asana, and there's 8 limbs of yoga, and most of our studios teach mostly asana, which is beautiful and lovely. But I always wanted more than that. And so I had to find the courage to teach more than that. And that was the hardest part, is the courage.
What
Always.
are the other limbs? I have no idea about this. Like, what is it? What is that about?
Oh my gosh. So you're going to put me on the spot, and I'm going to have to try to remember them all.
Oh, you could generalize.
We've got,
No one will know if you're wrong.
asana, pranayama, pratyahara. There's breath, there's movement, there's so much to it that, again, we don't all always practice. And so even just the breath work that you might see in some practices or some classes in the beginning of the class, and then again at the end of the class or throughout the class, right? You can weave breath into pranayama, into the whole class, or you can have breath practices, right? Where you're just breathing and meditating. So some classes are interweaving all of that, and some aren't. So the niyamas and the yamas are all of these moral constructs that are about yoga. So you can take such a deep dive into it, and I don't even understand it all, right? It's like a constant learning and a constant knowing at the same time. That might not make sense, but to have the courage to weave, like you're talking about, my themes into my class, that means I have to be willing to share what I know and not worry about if everyone gets it or they don't get it, or if they like it or don't like it. That's the hard part, right? Because you create all the time, right? So you know exactly what I'm talking about. When we're willing to create something that is unique to us, our self-expression, and it's partially knowing and it's partially the unknown, because we're going to go try something new. We're going to do it different because we're creating. And you have to be willing to let go of the outcome.
Yeah. You have to be willing to allow people to have their own experience of your truth. And it's so fucking scary. Oh my God. I mean, even now, and I feel like I've been doing this for so long. I find myself, there's this filtration system, very sophisticated filtration system that comes in the front of my mind. That's okay, this is what I truly believe, but is there a way that I can say this that won't hurt someone's feelings or offend them or trigger them or whatever? And it's how do I say this? There's there's a nobility in it. There is a well-intentioned in it, but then by the time it passes through that, it's lost its oomph.
Yeah.
It's lost the thing that made you feel for it. So I think that there's yes. And I think that there's something to be said for wanting to make sure that what you're putting out isn't something that triggers someone or whatever. But then there's that line, right?
Yeah.
If you filter yourself so much to be so no one can object to this, or no one could possibly get hurt by this, then you're also not saying anything that anyone could cling to and be like, oh yes, finally someone said it, or I feel like I'm seen through that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's watered down.
Yeah.
So watered down that And I think that as a society, we go through cycles, and this word triggered, being triggered, is such, it's almost like popularizing something that is, so we've got trauma that people experience, and we have mental health symptoms around trauma, and then we have people going around going, well, I'm triggered, that triggered me, this triggered me, and it's popularizing something it's bigger than that, right? And so we have to recognize a couple of things, in my opinion. One is that if I'm triggered, right, I'm responsible for responding to my trigger, right? Because there's this belief that we mirror each other, right? So if I'm really triggered by you, it's really something going on inside me that is creating this trigger. And I don't have control over what other people say and do. I never have, I never will. I can only control my feelings, what I say, and what I do. And so if I get triggered by somebody else because they say something that isn't filtered through all the filters that you just talked about, and I'm truly triggered, the only solution for me is to sit with myself, right? To meditate on, why am I so triggered by that? What's going on for me with that? It may be completely inappropriate what that person said. It might have been mean. It might have been hurtful. It might have even been hateful. It could have been criminal, right? And all of those things exist. And how do I take care of me in this world? You know? And I don't know, that's a hard place to get to in our society. Like personal responsibility for our wellness, whatever that looks like for us. And it might be yoga for you, it might be meditation for someone else, it might be bike riding, right? It might be jamming out to tunes in your car with the windows down.
I think that exactly, like, that's the most succinct way I've ever heard it. Like, in a broad societal way, like, I think that biggest, and right down to the person, the biggest struggle is being able to say and instead of or. It's not this or that. It's yes, that was fucked up. And
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 I deliberately say that so often to myself and to others to remind myself. Like half of the stuff that I speak is really just me reminding myself while I'm in a room with a bunch of people. It's an and, Melanie. It's not an or. Because when I'm in judgment, when I'm in that space of like, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong, my way or not that way. How could you do that? That's all me being in this space of judgment because I'm saying an or versus an and.
and doing that in front of a room, that's where the courage part comes up, right? Like, I, so I think that in the way that I've experienced this and struggled with this, as I'm now owning like the teaching side of my practice and like opening programs and stuff like this, it's that it's so funny because I have such, and this is when I think of you, I think of the word embodiment. Like that's where, and that's why I feel so connected to you. I have such embodiment in my practice when I'm photographing people. And and I know there is nothing that I know more truly besides, and it's an and, my love for my children or whatever in this practice. So it's the most in integrity thing for me to do, to teach on it because I really want to. But then there's this level of like, but I know that all I want to do is connect people to their truth and their embodiment. And I need to really ensure that I'm doing it in a way that like whatever I suggest is a suggestion, like in class, you suggest,
Right.
you suggest, you suggest. And there's also the element that you touched on of like, I need to tell myself this. It's like, I am never more present and at peace, truly, no matter what, even snuggling about with my kids, not as present, not as at peace as I am documenting a family.
Mm.
Because I'm not in my own stuff. Like I don't have any of the noise. It is the most present I can ever be. So when I'm doing that, and I feel like I always say I have the answers to the fucking universe when I'm photographing someone. I just feel like I truly believe everything's okay. Whatever happens is perfect. I don't care what happens with the light. If someone's crying, if someone's pissed off, it doesn't matter. I am totally present. Why am I feel like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde at home? I'm back
Right.
to the case. I'm like, and I have these moments where the stars align and there's like an infusement of like that knowing that I have in my practice that I can bring in my life. And it does help enrich my life, but I am not fully embodied all the time in my life with who I am when I have a camera.
But who is though? Right? Like maybe that's the unrealistic expectation that we put on ourselves is that so I'm you find what I would call the flow state, right? This is you're in creative flow, which for almost everybody that is the preferred state. Like can I just always be in flow? This feels so good. But everything is impermanent, so you can't always be in flow. So what I think tends to happen for a lot of people, including myself, is that I'm my most vulnerable self with my family, which means that I'm going to be more hurtful toward them, less present with them. I'm going to stumble through being mom, being, wife, being partner, being, friend. Like I might fumble through because I've chosen these people to feel that vulnerable with. And so when it's time to let my guard down, when I'm my nervous system is on fire, overextended, they're the people that I feel safe with. And this isn't for everybody because not everybody feels safe with their family, but so I think part of it is that what we project outside in the world or when we're in flow might sometimes look and feel different than it does when we're at home and we're being our most vulnerable, not always put together, not always in flow, not knowing what next self is. So I don't know, I think it's okay to be that way.
Yeah, I think that that something that I have found to be true is that I like that you said the preferred state because I think it is my preferred version, but I really do believe that right now I think that presence is something that's a hot topic that's being like glorified, which of course, but also there are varied levels and different kinds of feeling of presence that I find. Like I think that, especially I believe that you don't have to choose between being present or taking a photo. I think photography is an active form of meditation. And in fact, I think it's this like a wonderful, weird, easy way to get in touch with your subconscious and to be able to like witness what you witnessed and like sit in your seat of self. And I think that they're taking the picture is not the point. I don't think that there is, if you choose not to take a picture, I don't think that means that you're more present in that moment. I just think it's like your flavor. So I really appreciate that reminder of like, it may be your preference, but it doesn't mean that you aren't that. And I think that that comes up a lot when I'm, embarking on this. It's just like, well, who am I to teach on this when it's something that I struggle with and it's such a forefront. I have not at all surpassed it, but I think that those are the best people to teach because they are so committed to like, no,
Yeah.
like I'm committed to keeping this a conversation in the forefront of my mind. But sometimes it can really feel like an imposter syndrome situation where like, who am I to be teaching on this?
Yeah. I feel time. I mean, I've been teaching yoga for a long time and I still feel imposter syndrome. you know I also like I work in this realm of child welfare, and I work with a lot of caseworkers and supervisors, and I'm training them and I'm teaching them and I'm talking a lot, and even there sometimes it's probably a wound that I have. It's a way that I learned to cope as a child for myself. So if I do this, they will love me, right? If I'm like this, they will accept me. If I do things for them, they will enjoy my company or whatever. And part of growing up, we have to go through socialization, and so we're learning this relationships are everything, right? To me, relationship is what life is all about. And learning how to navigate in relationships and feel safe in relationships is a lifelong process, because we all come with this whole experience that is unique to us. Each one of us, we might have similarities in our childhood. We might have, commonalities, but my experience is different than yours. And so I'm coming into world and I'm relating in the world through the lens of how I have how I continuously heal myself, right? And how I continuously show up until, and this is where I'm headed, which I think is pretty cool, you just are being, right? You're not doing the healing anymore. You're not searching outside of yourself. You're just going, well, how do I feel? I don't feel good right now. I don't feel safe right now. I need to rest. I need to sleep. I need to eat. Like you're responding to your sensations in a way that you're human being all the time, and you don't have to go outside and fix yourself because you allowed yourself to get pulled out in every direction. And now you're like, wait a minute, where am I? I'm so lost. And then you're like, I need to go to my yoga mat, which is good. I want you to go to your yoga mat or wherever. But like, what if we as a society can get to a place where we don't glamorize overachieving, and we allow people to choose less and more, going and not going, doing and not doing, so that we don't feel like we're being pulled apart, that we stay centered.
Yeah, being able to witness ourselves like in a seat of neutrality and
Mm.
then act accordingly. You know, it's making me think about only in the last year and a half or so, 2 years, whatever it was. Have you heard of HSP?
Mm-mm.
It's like highly sensitive person. It's something
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I didn't understand what that was. And it was one of those moments where I like heard about it. I'm like, haha, totally probably me. I
Me.
started reading the checklist and I was like, dun, dun, dun. I'm like, oh no, this is way deeper than I realized. But like in that journey of like just coming to know myself more, and I read the book, The Highly Sensitive Person, and I was like, oh my God, like it's helped me even with like my panic attacks, because I used to, like if I was in a restaurant, this is the example I use, like with my best friend and it's yummy food. And all of a sudden I'm like, I feel uneasy. Why do I feel uneasy? I'm with the person I'm most comfortable with in the world. This food's delicious. It's pretty. What's wrong with me? I'm not breathing right. And then I would spiral. But now, because I know a little bit more, I just know more about my nervous system and what to expect from myself. I'm like, oh, the lights are fluorescent in here. It's a little loud. And even if I don't leave in that instant, like just knowing that, I know what resources I need to bring myself back to that home base feeling of feel
Yeah.
okay. But like it's not this emergency anymore, just because I've come to understand what are the things that are impacting me, and I can just decide whatever I want to do.
Yeah. And how you're going to take care of yourself because you're highly sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So it reminds me of that whole idea of like literally taking your shoes off and putting your feet on the ground. Like there's a reason why we are electromagnetic beings. If we are in front of computer screens, we're in front of TVs, we're driving in cars that have computers, our electrical system is, it's like overacting. Well, the biggest grounding thing that we have is planet Earth. And yet we hardly ever do that. Like literally just sit barefoot or put a blanket. Like I on a daily basis in the summer, not so much in the winter, but I'm going to put a blanket on or lay in the grass or sit in the grass, because what happens for me is that all of the anxiety, all of that, like it's almost like I don't know how to say it. It just feels like my whole body is doing this and I don't know why. And I really can't stop it. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to ask the earth to stop it for me. I don't have to do anything but sit there, and it will literally ground me. in space, and grounding is what is going to get me out of that anxious state, because it's almost like an opposing energy. If you got busy, what's the opposite of that? Like right now as we're speaking, I've got this right here in my hand. It's hematite. Why do I have it? Because it's grounding me. I don't do podcasts all the time. Maybe I'm a little nervous. Maybe my energy is like, what should I expect from this? We've not done this. This is our first intimate chat is via podcast, right? So I need a little support. So I'm gonna do whatever it takes to help myself feel comfortable. And I don't really care what anybody else thinks about that anymore. If you want to join me, I'll show you and I'll tell you about it. And if you think I'm strange or doesn't make sense, that's okay too. Because your route is your route. Your path is your path. It's not right or wrong. It's an and, right? Relating is an and, I guess.
I think "and" has to be part of the title of this podcast whenever we figure it out.
Yeah.
I love that. Even just the holding of the stone, it just reminds you of your humanness. It's like it reminds me of one of the most important things that I find, like if I was giving anyone advice for photographing a family or whatever, it's to let yourself be okay being a human and not the photographer.
Right.
You don't need to be prepared, and you don't need to consider yourself the one that should have all the answers, because when you come in to someone and to witness them with your ideas of what will look best, you're missing everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
And you're changing the energy of
And
it.
you're changing the energy, and it is not, when I go to photograph someone, I am not looking for them to perform for me. I am looking to as humbly and as naturally integrate into their normal as possible. It's funny, my sessions are 2 hours plus. People are like, "Oh, my kids can't last for that long." Well, I'm like, no. Yes, they can. In fact, like it turns into their show. Like you follow
Right.
their lead. You don't try to put them into your own formula. It is not about like how long they will last. If anything, I
Yeah.
hope that filter drops as quickly as possible. Like,
Right.
as they show me their like little dirt pile of worms or whatever. Like when I first get there.
Yeah. Like let them, it goes back to human being. I'm not trying to catch you doing something, right? I'm not trying to catch this doing moment, this perfect moment. I'm trying to experience, or even I don't know what the word would be, but it's like you're trying to be present with them as their human being. It's like you're just trying to be present with them. Yeah. That's super cool. I
And
love
what
that.
I love so much, and this just happened, is that I feel like it sounds corny or cheesy, but I feel honored, like goosebumps, honored if someone invites me to document them. Like it is not like, I do not take that for granted. I feel like it's so sacred, and it's also like gives me the opportunity to be reminded. Like I go there and I do that to be reminded of everything I need. And it reminds me of what you say at the end of class, like, thank you for showing up, because when you take care of me, it reminds me to take care of myself. So is
Right.
that what happens for you? Like, can you talk a little bit about teaching and how, like what you've learned through your teaching practice, and just about you doing yoga on your own or you taking a class? Like what's
Mhm.
different about that than when you're leading a class? Talk a little bit about the teaching process.
Well, I have to think about it for a moment. A couple of things are very different. One, I think um, when I'm teaching, it's not just my energy that, like one of the things I say is, get present on your mat. It's you, your breath, your mat. Try to let all of the external stuff go. And to me, that's beginning the meditation, right? Going inward is the solution to a lot of our problems, because in going in, there's a pause. And in a pause, when we pause enough, right, we slow down enough, it's almost like a time warp, right? This time warp happens, and then all of a sudden the best idea in the world will into your head, you know, the solution to your problem, and it's like it just appears. You don't even have to go searching for it. And it's all because you chose to slow down and to get out of the rat race, you know, whatever that rat race is. It's like you can't spin and spin and spin and spin and spin. You're going to just crash eventually. And so when I start a class, I'm when I'm on my mat by myself, I know to do that for myself, right? I Whether the instructor tells me or not, I just start going, phew, get into your body, your space, your breath. Don't worry about the rest of the room. Now, the ego pops up and I'm like, oh, they can do that. Maybe I can do that, you know, and I get out of my head and then I get back into my head and or yeah, I said that backwards, I think, but I get out looking at something, comparing myself to others, which it's a thing. You can do that. I can find a good pose and go, wow, I want to try that in my body. But ultimately, if I want to try it, I have to go, does that feel good to me? Does that seem too hard? Do I feel safe? Am I breathing? And that's really easy for me to do in my practice. But when I'm teaching, it's more about reminding everybody else in the room to do that. Sometimes I've got to center myself, not sometimes. When I teach a good class, it's because I've centered myself when I'm centering the rest of the room. We're in it together, right? But my energy just can't be in on me when I'm teaching. Whereas when I'm the student, you know, it's all for me when I'm the student. And it should be. I think we all have to, like, some people have been taught or believe that it's almost like being a martyr. You know, I am here, the people pleasing that you brought up. It's like I'm here to help everybody else. And then when they take care of themselves, it's almost like, well, I really don't have time to do this. I really shouldn't, you know, I could be doing other things. It's like this guilt trip that we give ourselves, those of us who are people pleasers. I mean, the narcissists, they're going, you know, they have to, it's like they have to lean over into maybe I should do something for somebody else. But those people who are people pleasers have to, like, literally sit and choose themselves. And it takes a lot of work for them because it's not in their comfort zone. They feel better helping others. They've been taught that, they think that, they believe that. And sitting with yourself over time, you might begin to believe something different. Like, oh, this is better for me. And the icing on the cake is I'm going to be a better wife, a better partner, a better, you know, photographer, whatever, because I choose me just as much as I choose, oh, my kids need this, my, you know, parents need that, whatever.
I think that I use that. I think whatever, any way you got to enter that journey, sure. I think that I started this, like, my wellness journey, as a means to not repeat a cycle for my children. I
Mm,
don't want them to inherit this anxiety and this worry and this stress that I hold. But it started for them, but now it is not any, I mean, of course, that's what I want that for as well, but it is now for me. Like, that is the brunt of it too. And, which I'm so grateful for. But what I find so fascinating as I'm in your class is that, like, how many times I need that reminder, like a little kid, like a puppy, like, or maybe this doesn't feel good to you. Like, I remember before that, I go to yoga class. I'm very, like, hyper flexible. Like, it feels like I don't have, I don't know. But there were times where I'd be in a pose and I'm like, in my mind, it was like, always go as deep as you can go. Even if I didn't feel it, I would just go as deep. And then sometimes I'd be in something so deep, it started tingling, you going numb because I don't
yeah.
like. It's not,
Like maybe
it's not that I'm
it's a
super
bed.
athletic. It's just that's just how I was built. I didn't work for that. Like, that's just how it is. And I'm like, wow, that doesn't feel good anymore. It feels like my leg's gonna fall off. So you're like, yeah, maybe the point is not to go as far as you can go and to feel like do anything. Maybe it's just finding that space wherever that is for you today. And I have to laugh at myself, like, because you do it so many times and you think, well, I know better, but still you have to be reminded and reminded and reminded.
And that's why we're all walking each other home, right? Is that if we are in space where there are other people who embrace all bodies, all experiences, and we talk in a way that says, hey, try this, maybe this or that, instead of you must do this, you have to. And sometimes they're not even saying it to me, it's just in my head. I've got to go all the way, um, and so that I didn't used to teach that way, to be completely honest. When I first started, I don't know that I knew that, but I'm on the continuous learning journey that you and I have talked about. We love learning, so and over the years, people kind of talked about, well, what about the hyper extenders and the very, very flexible people? And we're telling them to go into the deepest pose, and that may not be good for their bodies, but yet that was almost like the standard in yoga back in the day. And I think we've come a long way to realize that yoga doesn't have to be it's not just flexibility. It never has been, but we popularize that is, oh, you want flexibility? Go to yoga. Well, not everybody needs more flexibility in certain parts of their bodies. They actually need more strength there. They need to do less. There are people that are coming to yoga, and I'm like, you might benefit from some strength training, because they're on this, a spectrum. If you've got your most flexible over here and you've got your most bound up, on the other end. And it's even more complicated than that, if you ask me, because I can hyperflex in my knees, like I have hyperflexion there, or hyperextension, sorry. I can hyperextend in my legs, but yet there are other parts of my body that are really, really contracted. So I'm loosey goosey in one spot and hyper contracted in another. Like I get tensed up, my shoulders go whoop. I got like this constantly working with tension in the shoulders, trying to soften, trying to open my heart. Um, but yet I have super flexible hamstrings. Well, my hamstrings are kind of weak, really. So if it's wholeness that we're looking for, right? Where am I, and where do I find balance in my body, in my mind, in my work, in my life? Well, I got to find out where I'm out of balance.
And it trips me is that I'm like, oh, and I like, is there like that correlation between those physical symptoms and what you carry? Like, how often do you find that? Because for me, I'm like, yeah, I'm loosey goosey everywhere, but like, I feel the same about my shoulders. I'm always like this, like, I don't even realize I'm doing it. It's like, take your shoulders away from your ears. And I'm so tense. I'm like, of course, because I'm carrying the weight of the world, because of course it's on my back. That's where it is. Right.
Right. It is.
Like where, and I think that's what I find all these discoveries in your classes. Like when you mention stuff, I'm like, oh, I'm like noticing that connection between what's going on in my mental world and my physical body, and like where to draw those parallels and find those stories. Like, what do you feel to be the connection between the physical self and the, mental?
For me, the one of the biggest help was learning about my chakras, right? Our energy centers, which I love that they coincide. It's this very spiritual practice of finding your energy centers, keeping them open. So, like, let's just say we start with the root chakra, right? This is your safety place. So, do I feel safe in my home? Do I have enough to eat? Do I feel safe in my community? Energetically, that it's at the base of the spine, right? So there's literally a bunch of nerve ganglia right there, that scientifically coincides with what we call the root chakra in yoga, right? So we've got this it's such a beautiful time to be alive because, talk about the chakras has been going on for thousands and thousands of years. But now we have this ability to actually connect it with like your nervous system and your hormonal system. So you think about how, the pineal gland and the pituitary gland and your thyroid and your thymus and your kidneys and your ovaries or your testes, like these are all going up and down your spine. And so there's this idea that a chakra can be out of balance, right? And it could be and if you think of it as, they call it like an energy wheel that's spinning, right? And if this wheel isn't really spinning, you're going to have blockage because it's not spinning. And so you're going to feel really stuck. And maybe you're even clenching because you don't feel safe. So you're holding on for dear life in your physical body. Meanwhile, your mental state is saying, I'm not safe. I don't feel safe. Oh, no, I don't feel safe. And so you feel this, it moves all the way up your spine potentially, right? So then part of the yoga practice is, okay, I'm holding on so tightly that this energetic wheel, if you will, isn't moving. It's not even, there's no energy flow. It's like if you had a dam built, and the water can't go through down the river to the lake. It's just, there's a dam there, it's not going. Well, if my energy is blocked here, it's going to impact everything else up my entire spine, right? So on one end, we have people that have blockages. And then on the other hand, we've got some people who are, it's like this chakra is so open, right? It's almost excessively open. And, it could be that they also don't feel safe. And so their response, though, is different. It's not to clench, right? It's to allow everything and everyone to take advantage of them, right? Because that would be like me just trying to, on the fly figure out a way to say that. So, so you got some person who's not going to let anything in, they're tightened up so much, and then somebody else who is just letting everybody take advantage of them because they're trying to people please so much that they don't have any boundaries. So it's like with the chakras, we've got to figure out, where are we? Do we feel energetically balanced, or do we feel a little unsafe? And they have tons of stuff with that online. You can take quizzes online and figure out what chakras are blocked. So, for me, I guess to answer your question is, it is we're not separate. Our mental state is not separate from our physical state. We are really, in my opinion, spiritual beings in a body experiencing a life for our own growth. And if that's what we really are, our mental state can't be separate from our physical body. It just can't be. And so I've actually had some more profound healing from doing physical work rather than doing like, processing it mentally, if you will. Some of my biggest releases were lying on my mat versus, thinking my way through it, because I'm an overthinker. I don't know. Are you an overthinker?
I'm sitting in a basement because I need all the blackness so that I can really think. I'm the one that literally, a quote that came out of my mouth. One time, the only time in my life, I've been with my partner for a long time, and we broke up for a period of time. And during that crazy period of time, I became a runner, which, if you know me, you think that's preposterous. I don't like running. But even then, I remember being like, can't run too fast, because if I run too fast, I can't think. And I need to be thinking while I'm running. I need to think while I'm running. So it's more productive, So yes, I 1000% feel that. But what I think is, even when you said, like, something that came to me when you were like, well, do I feel energetically balanced? The vast majority of people don't ask themselves that question. I don't feel.
Right.
When I went to Sedona, I did this couple-hour retreat with this amazing woman, and I just couldn't believe as we were laying there, and she was talking us through like this meditation and visualization thing. Like, did I have to come this many hours away, drive in the car from the airport, and to lay here on the floor to have this thought to myself, I think it's insane. I was like, I've gone this many years of my life, and all I had to do was like give myself a fucking minute to like think of as very simple, like not to make it, and I mean she's so wise, but like it's so simple and it's so
Right.
profound. And I feel like something that I have come to appreciate more than ever is and how vital it is space. And I think
Mm,
that's what these containers are, like a yoga class, a photo session. Um, One time someone told me that I give permission for others to be present. And at first I rejected it. I was like, oh, I can't give permission to anyone. Who am I? Like I was totally
mm,
thinking about like rejecting the authority of that. But I'm like, no, creating a space for anyone to recenter themselves and cut out the noise of everything else that is creating permission and empowerment. Like when I photographed a retreat a couple weekends ago in Maryland, and I went there and I gave a little bit a talk and whatever about, because I was photographing them. So I wanted to really orient them in what I was there to do so that, I could make myself clear and my intentions and blah, 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 blah. But what was one of the themes of the retreat was surrender. And what came up
mhm.
for me is this idea that I think a lot of times people, will go to yoga class or go to retreat and be like, yeah, I felt like this there, but that's not real life. That's not real life.
Mm,
And I think maybe that is the point. Like, I think that that is real life. Like, that is like your container where you're actually able to hear yourself. And then you go back home and be like, well, that was that. And this is that. Like, I think that bridging that gap of integration, I mean, like, well, if you could take this inner sanctuary that you tapped into in this space, like, that is real life, though, isn't it?
yeah.
You're just able to hear yourself. Like, what if we could take what happens to us in the yoga mat and and then go back to life and be able to like feel a little bit more resourced to, use that in our life rather than be like, well, I can only feel peace there, and then now I'm home.
And that's going to take us straight back to the beginning of our conversation where it's outside of ourselves, right? It's outside of ourselves. That's part of the prevailing thought right now that disconnects people, right? And we stay disconnected because we believe and we choose to believe that, yeah, that was like vacation mode, right? Yeah, I can be that way because I'm in a yoga retreat and I have this person speaking it to my ear. But the actual practice, right, is am I always coming back to myself over and over and over again when I need to. And so sometimes we come back to ourselves because we realize, oh man, I feel like crap. I gotta get I gotta get to the yoga mat, right? I gotta go meditate. I'm way out of control, right? But that's almost like you're too late. Do you know what I mean? It's like um it's already you're already burnt. Okay, you made dinner, it's already burnt, and now you have to remake dinner, right? Oh, I better go remake dinner. What if we were paying enough attention to ourselves that we didn't wait until we got burned out and had to go to yoga retreats, right? And then fix it, rebuild the whole thing, right? Remake the dish, whatever, and then come back to just burn it again. What if we just said no? That part of my everyday is experience is slowing down, pausing, choosing my basement, my bat cave for 5 minutes. It does not take more than honestly 2 minutes, a minute to center yourself. But you have to know how to do it, right? You have to be able to say to yourself what I might say in a class. And I think that's part of the disconnect is people aren't saying it to themselves. They're like, well, Melanie says it. Melanie knows it. I don't know anything. I'm not all wise. I'm not, I wish I was that great, but I'm not. I'm just following the chain of other people that are also trying to stay whole. right? And so they're helping me and I'm helping them and you're helping me and I'm helping you all try not to burn dinner. That's so funny.
But like,
One more thing that I thought of that when you were talking about, you started on a path to help your kids, to protect your kids, to change like a generational aspect of whatever it is, whether it's trauma, whether it's genetic, whether it's both. Uh, Part of what I believe is that actually the only way you can help others is by helping yourself. Insert other, kids, mother, father. So when I show up differently, I allow space for everybody else to uh, match my frequency, right? To So if I show up with my kids anxious, my kids feel my anxiety, they get anxious. If I take care of myself and I get grounded and I show up with my kids grounded and I took the time for me, they already know that they have to ground themselves because mom grounds themselves. They learn from us taking care of ourselves that they can also take care of themselves. And I don't know how that got off kilter in our society, but I think the pendulum swung over here into overdoing. And when we're overdoing, we can't be grounded. We can't be as calm and we can't take care of ourselves because our list is too long. And I'm here to say that the list is never going to get smaller unless you choose to not put so many things on your list.
and I think that we're all so intuitive, we can like smell it on someone. Like we can, like, I think that's why being in your space feels so good because there's such an honesty and a purity of that you cannot, and an authenticity that you cannot fake. Like, and you cannot, and I think we all know in our deep, even if we're searching outside, I think in our deepest selves, we all know that we have the answer. So when you're around someone that feels at ease in themselves enough and that enough humility to say, I don't know. But like when I'm taking pictures of them, they're like, "Should we go here?" I'm like, "I don't know. What do you want to do?" Like I don't always feel like I have to be like, "No, the light is approximately going to be over here." That's a like I used to feel so triggered about that. Like I should know. I should know what the light's going to do, and I should know where exactly they should stand to not have unflattering shadows on their face. And it's
Oh,
like, oh my god, it cuts you off from so much. But like the permission to not have it all figured out, being modeled by someone that's in a place of authority or leadership or whatever at the front of the class. It's so powerful when they themselves are like, I'm just suggesting this. You have to keep like putting the onus back on that person. Like, I'm just suggesting this. And then something that you said about by the time you come back to it, you're burnt reminds me of one of my coaches, Haley Carr. She talks about slowing down to speed up and how
mm.
the strategy under the strategy means that we should be coming from ourselves, from our goals, not towards them. So it's not like that
Ah,
our walk on the beach, our cup of coffee in a cafe reading a book. It's not a reward. That needs it to be on the front end so that everything we do is infused with this goodness that we know fills us up. So it's not like, oh, I'm too busy to go to yoga class this week. Maybe next week. It's, oh, I'm too busy. I extra need to go to yoga to ensure that I'm well resourced to like show up as my best self, whatever that is, like myself that feels the best to me.
yeah. And we always are our best selves. Like, think about it. When I'm the most imperfect, judgmental, you should do this, and why aren't they doing that? And don't they know better than this? That's my best self at that moment. That is honestly the best I can be. And what's nice about yoga is yoga kind of talks about your ego self and your higher self. When you get to a point where you can see your ego responding in judgment of other people, You know, when you can witness, right? We always talk about be the witness, be the witness. When you can witness yourself and you go, oh, wow, that was really judgmental. Like in my head, I'm saying this, oh, Melanie, like, who do you think you are? Back off a little. That's not a very nice thought. And I say to myself, oh, that's just my ego, trying to protect me, trying to keep me safe, because judgment is really this tool that we are using to try to save us somehow from being hurt in some way by some person or something or situation. And so I can say to my ego, oh, you know what? I don't need protected right now. I'm okay. I got this. I'm fine. I don't need to be that judgmental about it. And then that's when my shoulders soften, right? So going back to, is it, it's not one or the other. It's like my whole being is choosing to soften, to soften into life instead of bulldozing into it. And that's why the pause is so important, because I can't soften. I can't hear the voice of my higher self saying to me, that's kind of judgmental, if I don't pause, because the ego is leading the show the whole time. And so then there's just, well, that's wrong and this is wrong and don't do that and why not do this and I got to do more of this and here's my list and why not, why isn't it done? And that's no fun. That's not even, doesn't even feel good. So wouldn't it just be so much better to slow down, to speed up, right? And it's the truth, because I'm going to make a better choice if I sit with it. I'm going to feel better about my choice if I sat with it. I might even love my choice because I sat with it. Mhm.
Oh my gosh. Aren't we human beings? Aren't we funny little creatures?
We are. We are so odd. Like, out of all of the other creatures on this planet, like, we're the only ones that don't seem to get that we're part of it all.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I don't think that the birds are going, well, is my ego in check? They're just enjoying flying, finding food where they find it, going doing their thing. Oh no, we gotta.
Got to think it through. I will sit here until I have it figured out. There was actually a quote. Let me see if I can find it really fast. It gave me such relief. And of course, yesterday, and then of course, today, I'm back on my shit. I'm like, oh no. But I was so zen yesterday about it.
Yeah.
It was this like idea of like needing to figure out, needing to categorize ourselves, needing to, whatever it is. Hold on, let me see. I know this
It's almost like compartmentalizing.
like organize my own thought. It's like, it's so funny to me how figuring out HSP, like finding a label that
Right.
made me feel understood, was such relief. But why? Like why? Like when I think about like when I was pregnant, like finding out if it's normal to feel like that. I'm like, is it normal? Like, what is normal? Is it, most people feel that, like, and that should put me at ease. I'm not most people, I'm myself. Like maybe my body does things differently. Um, so I just think it's so natural, but also feels so silly in a sense to try to put yourself in that box. Like I've struggled so much with like trying to come up with curriculum and organize my thoughts. And I'm like, why do I still feel so confused?
It's an and.
It's an and because I'm making an or. Um, Whatever. I don't know. It was something about, I can't find it. It was
Okay,
something
because
about,
I was just thinking about why is it an and then it just, like the thought went like that, but I don't know. I can't remember either. But
why, what do you mean? Why is it
just
an,
had triggered that's an and. Like, why? It was something right before the whole thing you said about having to figure out the curriculum and all of that, like the overthinking piece.
uh-huh.
I don't know though. It's gone.
Hold on.
Like the wind.
Like the wind. Gone like my zen is gone. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Um, it says, don't be afraid to be confused. Try to remain permanently confused. And anything is possible. Stay open forever. So open it hurts. And then open up some more until the day you die. World without end. Amen. George Saunders. So it's like, yeah, you just keep thinking about, well, if I have clarity, I'll understand more of what I'm doing. But that's not the point. Like, something that gave me such relief, and I believe in it fully, is that even as an artist, I think we're all artists. It's just whatever is your way. Your life is your art. Um, we're it's a question. Like, what is your question? Life, like whatever. We have put so much weight on, like, what is my purpose? What is my why? What is my answer? But I think the most beautiful part is, in everything we're doing, whatever our chosen modality is, it's just an everlasting attempt to answer a question. Maybe it's this, like, maybe I found it here. Maybe it looks like this. Maybe it looks like this. But it's in continuing to answer the question, not to like find a sentence in your mind and like, I'm content that this is the answer, and now I can serve and speak from here. Like, I have the answer. It's, well, what is the question that you feel like you're in pursuit of, that you'll never tire of? That's what it feels like for me.
Well, and even if you tire of it, there's 100 million more subjects to learn about, right? So what was coming up while you were talking for me was this concept of, and it's a style of yoga called Tantra yoga, and everybody thinks Tantra yoga is all about sex, but it's really about remembering and forgetting. So, in a very simplistic way, the universe, created this whole experience. And in this experience, we forget our Zen. We forget to experience the joy of remembering. If we always knew, if we always had it always figured out, everything was figured out all the time for us, we wouldn't create. And the whole point of our experience and our existence is to create, right? And if we can be whole in ourselves, if we can feel whole, we can create beauty, love, joy, happiness, all of the good things. When we're not feeling whole, we create some of the darker things like misery, anger, fear, frustration, and those things are supposed to coexist, right? We have to have them all, because when I'm in fear, I've forgotten my joy, right? If I'm always in my joy, I don't remember joy because it's the only thing that is, right? It doesn't even feel good because it's just all that it is. So I bounce back over into fear. I forgot, right? Forgot joy. I'm in fear. I'm afraid of everything. I got it all figured out. And then all of a sudden I remember, oh yeah, my whole point is to create my family, create my photography sessions, create my yoga classes, create my beautiful garden, whatever it is, my not burnt dinner, right? I remember, and then I'm back in joy, and I experienced joy, and I loved it. It was great. And then all of a sudden, whew, I go back. And so that philosophy of yoga is the one for me that allowed me to not see all of my quote unquote negative emotions as a problem that I'm supposed to get rid of, that they're not supposed to be there. They're part of the whole experience. The two, they all balance each other out. And I just loved that about that practice, because then if I'm lucky, when I'm in that quote unquote negative space, that place where it doesn't always feel good to be there. But here's the other thing. Let's just talk about sadness, right? It doesn't feel good to be sad, but the only way that I've ever really, really released my sadness was to experience it, right? If I cry I can cry it, I can hold it, I could refuse to cry, I could attach to it. But if I literally, and it's a physical experience for me where I cry and I go, okay, I really let that go. I mean, 5 minutes later, I might be laughing. An hour later, I might be. I might not. It might. Sometimes it's taken me years. Like, I've had years of sadness, and that's okay. But again, if I keep coming back home, eventually, and there's work to it. I'm not saying there's not work to do on yourself, but if I continuously do it without expecting an outcome, detached from that, eventually I'm going to find joy and I'm like, oh, I'm back. I'm here. Yay. I don't know.
Oh my God. Yeah, you just say the most profound stuff ever. And you're like, yeah, but I don't know.
Because I don't. I mean, I really don't. I
Oh
mean, this is just like what I'm trying to figure out.
yeah. Oh my God. It's so beautiful. And it's like, can't go over it, can't go under it, gotta go through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is so true. Like that moment of like that aha moment of when you go from like the dark to the, oh yeah, I remember. That feeling is just part of it. It makes so much sense. And I think about how much there is to learn from the dark and how you couldn't see light if we didn't have dark. You couldn't see it, of
Yeah.
course. And that's why I think one of my main practices in when I'm photographing is that like the to thrive in constraint, whatever you go to when you go to a session, like the things that you were traditionally taught about the way of photographs and like how people look best and whatever, there are some scenarios you could walk in and you want to poop your pants because you're like, oh no, how am I going to make a beautiful picture? But like if you can look at that, the constraint, and say, what is that giving me? You find you discover, you're open to seeing something even more special and better than if you were given all of the light and all of the most ideal circumstances. Like one of my favorite photos I've ever taken were the ones where I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna work. Like it's so dark, my camera's freaking out, it can't quite focus and it loses focus and it goes blurry, but for some reason the blurry picture is the most beautiful thing I ever saw. It's just this constant allowance. And oh my gosh, that
Mhm.
feels like a really good place to wrap this. Like
Yeah. Allowing, right?
allowing,
Yeah.
allowing, and what else? There was one more thing that kept coming up.
We're allowing and
Not like having the means to an end. Like it's not about,
outside of you.
yeah, it's inside. It's inside.
Yeah. So, and inside and allowing and inside and allowing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or allowing it to be inside, allowing your inside, sitting with your inside,
Allowing.
all of it. Yeah.
Oh my God, Melanie,
Mhm.
I am so grateful for this
Oh,
conversation.
me
I
too.
can't even tell you. Can you please share anything about yourself? I know you have some stuff going on your website. I know you have a retreat coming up. Like, is there anything that you want to share? This will probably be posted on Wednesday, so it's going to be current.
Sure. Currently, what I have going on is there is the Art of Awakening retreat that my friend Jen and I are doing at Finley Lake in New York. It's just a couple-hour drive from Cleveland. We rented this beautiful lakefront property with hiking, kayaks, canoes, and we're doing the elements. So we're talking about how water, air, fire, earth, spirit all connect, and we're all part of that. And I think it's just going to be kind of a yoga, beautiful, lovely food, uh, company, companionship, laughter, love, light, maybe a little bit of shadow stuff too. So we're looking forward to that. Other than that, I'm teaching my yoga at Harmony and at a place in Chardon, in Buntu Wellness. And who knows what else is on the horizon. So much change coming up for me. So I'm kind of curious myself, you know?
Well, to stay in Melanie's world, we're gonna put in the show notes. We'll put your Instagram, your website, whatever you want to put in there, so that if you want more from Melanie, which
Yeah.
I always do, which is why I go to yoga, you can find her in the show notes at the link.
Cool.
Is there anything else that you feel like is left unsaid? Anything else coming up, or do you feel complete?
I feel whole.
Oh, thank you so much, Melanie.
Well, thank you.